Hello everyone and welcome to Horror Nights Express, where we will talk about all things Horror Nights, and we will also dabble into Busch Gardens' Howl-O-Scream every once in a while. But the main focus of this part of the Theme Park Express channel will be focused around Universal Studios' Halloween Horror Nights. So this premiere episode is going to be mostly about what we know so far about Halloween Horror Nights 27. So what we're going to cover in this episode so far is the shows, the houses, and the scare zones that we have so far that were already announced for this year in Halloween Horror Nights 27. Future episodes we will cover tips and tricks and ticket prices and all the other logistical stuff that you might need to know if you're planning a trip to Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. But for right now, we're going to talk about what we know so far about this year's event, which is already shaping up to be quite a fun event, and I'm super excited to share with you guys all the information that we know so far about Halloween Horror Nights 27. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. And we are going to talk about the scare zones. Now, as of today, we just got a full release of the scare zones that we can expect for Halloween Horror Nights 27 this year. And I'm quite excited for it. We had a statement put out by Universal explaining a bit about the scare zones and what their names are and a little bit of what we can expect in their locations. So I'm going to read verbatim from what's on the computer, and we'll see what kind of information that we can get. This Halloween Horror Nights, we're inviting you to join the celebration of blood and bone at what can only be called the Festival of the Deadliest, an ancient tradition from the depths of where nightmares are born. A gathering of the most unearthly, hellish terrors has emerged from the darkest corners of despair. It calls to those who long for the thrill of the scare and wish to have their fears made real. You'll be drawn like moths to a flame, and once you join this hallowed celebration, your nightmares will never end. You'll find the heart of the festival on the streets of Hollywood in Universal Studios, Florida, but its claws have spread throughout Horror Nights. Here's what awaits you every night. The first scare zone that we have is Trick or Treat. First up, it's time to make sure everyone understands the rules of our haunted holiday. Get a proper Halloween education in our Central Park Scare Zone, inspired by the film Trick or Treat. We're excited to have Sam visit and make sure we follow the rules of Halloween. As a longtime fan of classic horror anthology films, Trick or Treat is a favorite of mine, per the person who is giving the statement, that pays perfect homage to that genre. In this zone, you'll have the opportunity to come face to face with several characters from the film and learn for yourself what happens when you don't follow the rules. Now, I've never seen the film Trick or Treat. I'm pretty sure I have to. I gotta find it somewhere, whether it be on Netflix or Hulu. I know all the Saw movies are on Hulu right now, but I gotta find this movie somewhere because I am super excited for this. I've heard good things about this movie, don't get me wrong. So I'm very excited. I don't know what to expect for right now, but hopefully once I see the movie, I can give you guys a little bit more perspective on what I think of it and a little bit more of what we can expect in the scare zone. Next on our list of scare zones is the Purge. Next up, we have a returning story to our New York streets with The Purge. This time, our approach was to create a scare zone that showed how we think the events of a Purge night might play out in our streets. There are some fan favorites returning, such as our auction and a very polite gentleman. We also have some new surprises in store. For example, how do you clean up all the mayhem on the streets during a Purge night? Visit the cleanup crew with their trusty wood chipper to find out. Just don't get too close. Next up on our list is Altars of Horror. Near the front gates on Avenue of the Stars, we have our Altars of Horror. For me, this scare zone is very exciting because we're bringing something to the streets of our horror fans that we have never done before. In this zone, we're taking some of the larger-than-life characters featured in this year's houses and letting them have their own scare zone. A lot of work goes into bringing these iconic film characters to life in our houses, so you'll have the time and opportunity to get an even better look at them. Now, this scare zone for me sounds like it's going to be pretty awesome. It sounds like it's going to be an IP scare zone, which means intellectual property. So, the IPs that we have for this year's Halloween Horror Nights include Saw, The Games of Jigsaw, Ash vs. the Evil Dead, The Shining, and American Horror Story. So I'm pretty sure that this scare zone is going to include many characters from those different IPs. So maybe we can expect some characters from American Horror Story. I forget which seasons this house covers. I know they had an American Horror Story house last year, and it had a certain season, so I'm expecting we can expect the different characters from this season to be roaming around that scare zone. Definitely Ash vs. Evil Dead characters. I'm hoping that we can see that little Jigsaw toy that we have, the doll on the tricycle. I'm hoping we can see that guy running around in the scare zone, or riding around for that matter. So I'm very excited for this scare zone, and it's shaping out to be something that's pretty exciting. Next up on our list is Invasion. Set in a time decades ago, our docks in San Francisco find themselves the victim of an invasion. Visitors from far beyond have crashed their vessel and are now wreaking havoc on the streets of San Francisco. They aren't just here to destroy. These invaders are also on a mission to learn everything they can about us humans. Careful, or you may find yourself on the experiment table at the mercy of an alien scientist. So this one is like a pretty generic alien scare zone, I'm assuming. We might see an alien spaceship crashed, you know, if it's describing a vessel. So we should see an alien spaceship crashed somewhere in the scare zone, and just a whole bunch of aliens roaming around. And I can only assume that if they're mentioning an experimenter's table from a scientist's point of view, we can probably expect to see a mini show going on in this scare zone with an alien pulling a victim from the audience, or from the crowd that's going to be walking through that scare zone, and experimenting on him, ripping him open, and, you know, tearing out his innards like we've seen in years past. Lastly, no Halloween Horror Nights would be complete without roaming hordes. This time, it's the smell of the grease paint, the roar of the chainsaw. Unhappy with how popular culture has made clowns scary, this grotesque gang of gigglers has risen from the grave, determined to show the world that if you want scary clowns, they're going to make sure you get your worst nightmare. Now, this is super exciting. One of my biggest phobias is clowns. Like, I absolutely despise clowns, but at the same time, I love seeing them in a Halloween Horror Nights setting, or Halloween Scream setting, just in a horror setting in general. And I think this is Universal playing off of what's been going on last year and the year before that, I believe it was, with all the, you know, the clowns that were plaguing America, you know. And this is really, really cool, because that was a pretty scary time in America, and, you know, I think some clowns even showed up in different places of Europe. So I'm very excited to see how this plays out, and I'm definitely applauding Universal for playing on, you know, the events of last year, if this is what they were going for. Now, let's get on to the shows that are coming to this year's Halloween Horror Nights. Academy of Villains Afterlife is a show that is going to be returning this year after it had a run last year. Now, I never got to personally see the show, as I did not attend last year's event, unfortunately, but there are videos on the internet from last year's event. Excuse me, I had a burp there. But there are internet videos on the internet of last year's show, and from what I've seen, it's a pretty cool show. It's, you know, got a lot of, you know, dancing and a lot of parkour moves and things like that. So it's a pretty, you know, rock music heavy show, and a lot of, you know, stunts and such. So I'm pretty excited to see it this year for myself, and with me having the frequent fear pass, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a good opportunity to see it quite a few times. So the description is, but wait, there's more. The question is, can you handle more? I'm happy to share Academy of Villains Afterlife will be returning to put on an all-new killer performance. This group of powerhouse artists will make you bear witness to what happens after we leave this life. They're going to give you one mind-blowing and shocking dance performance that will escort you from this world to the great beyond. And that does it for the description of the scare zones. They say here, as you can see, the streets will be alive with plenty of horror, mayhem, and celebration. The opportunity to bring your favorite horror films to life and tell our own unique horror stories makes every day a thrill. My favorite part of the event is walking the streets each night as our scare actors make these terror-filled tales a reality. Every scream I hear puts a huge smile on my face. Pick up your tickets today. I'll see you out on the streets. So I'm very excited for this year's event. Now, going back through with the scare zones, starting with Trick or Treat, it says here that this scare zone is going to be located in the Central Park area of Universal Studios. So I'm going to go ahead and put an image up on the screen of an overhead shot of the park, and I'm going to put an arrow to where this scare zone is going to be located. And I'm also going to put up some pictures of some of the construction photos of what's been going on right now, because we already have, you know, some Halloween decorations going up around that area with all the pumpkins that are up in the trees, and we even have some ghosts that are being hung up and some faces that are on the lights, on the lamps. So super excited to see how this scare zone is going to turn out. Now, the Purge, this is going to return to the New York area, which is where it has been in years past, and it's a pretty big area to work with. So I'm very excited to see what new things they can do with the Purge scare zone this year. Wasn't my favorite scare zone when I went in years past, but it's still a pretty solid property. Now, Altars of Horror, this is going to be the very first scare zone that you run into when you walk into the park, depending on which area you go, because when you go into the park, you can either walk straight up or you can go ahead and make a right. So we're going to see exactly how this one plays out. Not too sure what to expect from it, other than, you know, some of the, you know, IP characters walking around. Maybe they'll have some minions and, you know, other characters, sub-characters from the shows walking around there, but I'm not too sure what to expect from that. The Invasion scare zone is going towards where the entrance, or where the former entrance of Disaster used to be, which is probably going to be the exit of the new Fast and Furious supercharged attraction. There's always been a scare zone there. I think Dead Man's Wharf was there last year, if I remember correctly. Again, I didn't get to go last year, but I think Dead Man's Wharf was there last year. So that area has never had the best scare zones. There's been a couple that have been really good. I remember Zombie Graz from the very first time that I went there, and I think there was the drive-in theater that they had there that was pretty okay, where they switched it off between black and white characters and the regular modern day characters. So I'm very excited to see how this scare zone plays out. Now, going into a bit more detail about some of the houses that we already know that are going to be there. There are going to be a total of 9 houses this year at Halloween Horror Nights, which is what I think they had last year. And we already have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4 of the houses. And I think they still have one more IP house to announce, because they've already said that it's going to be a 5-4 split between IPs and original houses, original ideas. So right now we have Saw, the Games of Jigsaw, which is going to be based on all the film franchises, and it is going to feature all the best traps from Jigsaw, from the very first one all the way up to the new movie that's coming out this year, Jigsaw. So I'm super excited to see that. I love the Saw movies. You know, you can never have too much gore in a movie. Some might, you know, argue against that, but you can never have too much gore in a movie, which is something I'm very much looking forward to. I'm looking forward to all the gore. Now, Ash vs. the Evil Dead, this is, I guess, a Starz show. I've never heard of this until this was announced. I mean, I've heard of Evil Dead, you know, I've seen that movie before, but Ash vs. the Evil Dead, I've never heard of it. I think this is going to be the comedy house of this year, because from what I can tell, it's a bit of a comedy. Again, I've never seen it before, so I'm no expert on this whatsoever. So, I mean, we can see what this has to offer, and I'm definitely going to be there on the very first night, if possible, because, you know, I still have a job, but, I'll be there as much as I can to cover this event for you, and I'll be sure to give you my thoughts as soon as I go through that house. Now, The Shining. This is a house that I think a lot of people are going to be really excited for, and it's going to be a make or break house. People are either going to hate it or they're going to love it. You can go either way, and hopefully they do this house right, because The Shining is a very iconic horror movie, and it's kind of a classic, if you ask some. So this is a very touchy house, and it has to be done really well, or else it is going to fall flat with fans of that movie. Now, American Horror Story. I wasn't able to go to Halloween Horror Nights last year, so I can't comment on the American Horror Story house from last year and how it fared. But from the videos that I've seen, it looked like a pretty exciting house. I've seen a couple seasons of American Horror Story. I've never been able to get into it so much. You know, I'm always, you know, occupied with something else, and I don't have too much time to get invested into TV shows. I'm barely catching up on The Walking Dead as it is right now. But American Horror Story, it's going to feature different seasons from what was featured last year. I think last year featured Hotel and Freak Show and, you know, things like that. And Coven, I think it was last year. But yeah, this house is going to feature all new seasons, and it's going to cover all new material in this house. And I think last year was one of the biggest houses that they have, so I'm super excited about that. Now, one last thing that I have to mention is Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. It is returning this year, and it has always been a crowd favorite, and they make fun of pop culture icons, and, you know, they have different jokes that they tell each year, and some jokes carry over from year to year, and I'm very excited to see it come back this year. However, we are going to say goodbye to it after the end of this year. This is going to be its final run, and Universal Studios hasn't announced exactly why this is going to be its last year, but a lot of people are speculating that it is because of the future growth of the park that is going to be needed. You know, there's a bit of space there's a bit of land in that space that the theater is occupying, and there's quite a bit of land behind it that is occupied as well currently by a house. There's a house right behind Bill and Ted's and the Fear Factor stage. So unfortunately, this is going to be its very last year. I'm going to try and get as much time into Bill and Ted's as I can each night, because I'm very sad to see this one go. The very first time I went to Halloween Horror Nights, I went into Bill and Ted's not expecting anything. Like, I just didn't know what it was. You know, I heard that it was a comedy show, but I didn't know what to expect, and Lord knows I love it every single year. Who is texting me? Anyways, so yeah, Bill and Ted's ending this year. Super sad to see it go. Alright guys, so I think that is going to do it for this first episode of Horror Nights Express. I'm super excited to get these videos out to you guys, and I'm very much looking forward to, you know, giving you all the juicy information that we have coming out of Halloween Horror Nights this year. Be sure to stay tuned to this channel when Halloween Horror Nights starts for more episodes of the Express vlog that are going to be coming to you from Halloween Horror Nights, and I'm going to give you all the juicy information right here on this channel. So if you're new, be sure to subscribe, click that bell icon below so that you're always notified when I upload a new video, and until then, I will see you guys in the next video.